Was Meghan Markle a mother before she became a duchess? The screen goes black. A heartbeat sound pulses. Then, snap. A photo appears. Blurred. Faded. A hospital bracelet. A date. 2000. That's how it starts. Not with a royal wedding. Not with suits. Not with that infamous Oprah interview. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. But with a forgotten name. A child. A father silenced for decades. And a secret that, if true, would rewrite every chapter we thought we knew about Meghan Markle. Because according to her estranged father, Thomas Markle, the world's most polarizing duchess didn't just walk away from the royal family. She walked away from something even more shocking. Her own child. Who is this child? This isn't some clickbait headline. We're talking about a man who once paid for his daughter's acting school, who proudly held her toddler hands at red carpet events in Los Angeles. A father who, despite his own public unraveling, has never stopped claiming that he knew Meghan's darkest secret, long before the cameras rolled and the world was watching. And now, with Meghan and Harry entangled in legal spats, under increasing media pressure and leaking staff and PR reps like a sinking ship, Thomas Markle has come forward again. This time, not with complaints about being excluded from royal events, but with the claim that his daughter abandoned a child in an orphanage when she was just 19 years old, a child she allegedly conceived with a man named Joe Giuliano, a high school boyfriend turned ex-fiancé, who himself vanished from the public record for years. The story is filled with contradictions, holes, trauma, mistruths, but also pieces that line up disturbingly well. And one photograph, allegedly smuggled out of an orphanage in Mexico, that could blow this entire story wide open. Why now? Let's address the obvious. Why is this coming out now? Simple. Timing. Meghan Markle has spent the past few years rebranding herself, from actress to duchess, duchess to mother, and mother to media mogul. But as the empire begins to crumble under the weight of canceled deals, a Netflix documentary backlash, and tabloid war fatigue, her past refuses to stay buried. The press? They've mostly written Thomas Markle off as a disgruntled old man. But what if this time he has receipts? We're not talking about petty grievances or bitter quotes here. We're talking about a birth certificate, a witness, an orphanage director, and a child who might still be out there, wondering why no one came back. Joe Giuliano, the lost fiancé. Now, who is Joe Giuliano? For years, his name has rarely been spoken in Meghan's world. But those who knew her at Immaculate Heart High School say Joseph wasn't just a crush. He was the one. There were rumors, engagement talk, a falling out. And then, nothing. He vanished from the Markle narrative. Until now. Because if what Thomas claims is true, Giuliano may not only be the father of a secret child, but a man threatened into silence after trying to speak out in 2008, just before Meghan landed her breakout role on Suits. And here's where things get twisty. One of Giuliano's former co-workers recently gave a statement to a blogger, alleging that Joseph once confided in him about a girl he loved who had to give up their baby. The girl? A young aspiring actress from Los Angeles. Her name? Meghan. Coincidence? Or something far more haunting? The diary page that was never meant to be found. According to unverified reports, a handwritten diary from Meghan's teenage years was allegedly discovered during a storage cleanout, one believed to belong to her late grandmother. In it, a cryptic passage. It hurts, but it was the only way. I couldn't keep him. Not when everything was about to begin. That's it. No name. No date. But the tone? Resignation. Grief. Determination. It matches the timeline. It matches the claim. And it raises the question, was Meghan Markle forced to make an impossible choice before she ever set foot in Hollywood? Why this story matters. This isn't just about royal gossip anymore. This is about the character of someone who has positioned herself as a champion for children's rights. A mother. A mental health advocate. If proven true, this story upends everything. What does it say about our obsession with curated public images? What does it mean when the platforms we build to uplift voices turn out to be built on hidden pain? And most disturbingly, what does it mean for the child who may still be out there, watching his supposed mother give speeches at UN events about never abandoning your voice? What if he was the one abandoned? But before we dive in, a word of caution. You're going to hear things in this expose that will shock you. Details that may sound unbelievable. You'll question motives. You'll wonder about timing. You'll demand proof. And that's fair, because this story isn't clean. It's not polished. It's messy, contradictory, human, but woven between the rumor and the rage, between the hurt and the headlines. There just might be truth. A truth Meghan Markle never wanted us to find. What you'll learn in this story. In the chapters ahead, we'll uncover the real story behind Joseph Giuliano and Meghan's teenage romance, and why he allegedly vanished. The timeline of Meghan's secret pregnancy and disappearance in 2000, and how her trail led to a rural orphanage in Ensenada, Mexico. The voice memos Thomas Markle says were left on his answering machine, pleading for help when she couldn't tell anyone else. The hidden pages of a personal journal that hinted at trauma, regret, and a child never claimed. A Netflix executive's alleged attempt to suppress this story just before Meghan's Archetypes series premiered. And the shocking twist, a man who claims to be the lost child, and his cryptic Instagram post with the caption, "I think I found her." But we're not starting at the end. We're starting at the very beginning, with a whisper, a promise, and a baby no one was supposed to know about. And the person who might hold the key? Joseph Giuliano's mother. Because what she allegedly told a retired social worker in a Los Angeles nursing home might flip everything we thought we knew about Meghan Markle upside down. She said, "I held that baby. He had her eyes. But what came next would change everything. And no one saw it coming. Why didn't anyone ever talk about this?" It's a question that echoes in the halls of Hollywood gossip circles, social media forums, and every royal conspiracy thread online. For years, Meghan Markle was framed as the girl who had it all: beauty, ambition, and a career trajectory that seemed unstoppable. But what if, behind the glitz and the carefully curated Instagram posts, there was a secret she carried alone? A child, whispered about, but never confirmed, left in an orphanage, far from cameras, paparazzi, or public scrutiny. Thomas Markle says that child exists. And the whispers he finally dared to speak out loud tell a story that's dark, messy, and almost impossible to ignore. The first rumors. Hollywood is full of rumors. Every high school crush, every actor's secret fling, every hidden pregnancy becomes a story once it's whispered into the right ears. But the story of Meghan Markle and Joseph Giuliano, or the child allegedly born of their relationship, is different. It wasn't leaked by gossip blogs or tabloids at the time. It was whispered. In private corners, behind closed doors. And it's one of those whispers that can make or break a life. Those closest to Meghan in high school rarely talk, but the few who do speak in cautious tones. She was so careful about her private life, a former classmate told an entertainment blog years later. Even then, she knew how to disappear when she needed to. But disappear from what? From Hollywood? From love? Or from responsibility? The timeline Thomas Markle gives is chilling. Meghan, 19, young and ambitious, allegedly faced a choice no teenager should have to make. Joseph Giuliano, her boyfriend, a serious, charismatic young man from Los Angeles, may have been ready to step into fatherhood, but Meghan was ready for her career, not a child. Joseph Giuliano, who was he? To understand this story, you have to understand Joseph. He wasn't just a high school flame. He was reportedly Meghan's first serious relationship, a man who knew her deeply, someone who could have become her partner, or her undoing. Friends from their school days describe him as intense, protective, and occasionally reckless. They were inseparable for a time, planning futures in whispered conversations between classrooms and local coffee shops. But then, something changed. Meghan's ambitions pulled her away. Auditions, travel, publicity, and allegedly, an unplanned pregnancy. Joseph reportedly wanted to step up. Meghan allegedly panicked. And the child, the result of their young love, ended up somewhere no one expected, an orphanage. What kind of fear drives a 19-year-old to abandon her own child? Fame? Family pressure? Shame? Or just the raw terror of what the world would say? The orphanage, a place out of sight. The orphanage Thomas Markle claims housed Meghan's child is reportedly located in a quiet suburb far from Los Angeles. Former staff members describe a small, crowded facility where children were cared for, but records were kept loosely. Allegedly, a brown envelope arrived one morning with a child's birth certificate and a letter, and signed, asking for the staff to take care of him. No name, No explanation. Only a child who matched the timing. A boy with dark hair and piercing eyes, allegedly inherited from his mother. According to Thomas Markle, he didn't find out about the orphanage until years later. He says he learned about the child when he confronted Meghan over her sudden disappearance in the summer of 2000. She allegedly admitted, in tears, that she couldn't manage the child while chasing her career. Contradictions and confusions. Here's where the story gets complicated. Some sources claim Meghan never admitted to a pregnancy. Others say she may have terminated or placed the child for adoption quietly, far from the public eye. Social media posts from that era are scarce, but gaps in her work timeline suggest that something major happened around age 19. And then there's Joseph. Where was he? According to sources, he tried to stay in contact but was blocked, threatened, or simply ignored. No one knows for certain. He vanished from public life for years, reportedly leaving Los Angeles entirely. The contradictions created tension. Was this a story of abandonment or survival? Of secrecy or necessity? Of love lost or love denied? The diary entry. Then there's the alleged diary page. Handwriting not verified publicly, but the content is haunting. I can't keep him. It hurts, but it's the only way. I must move forward. No name, no date, but the phrasing and emotional weight match the timeline. Thomas reportedly says this is proof Meghan knew exactly what she was doing and that the child existed. Critics argue it's circumstantial. But supporters of Thomas Markle claim the diary is a roadmap of secrets, each page pointing toward a past Meghan wanted hidden. Why the world needs to know. You might be wondering, why does this matter now? After all, Meghan is married to a prince, a mother, and a media personality. Why dig up a story from 25 years ago? Because secrets like this don't disappear. They fester. They shape decisions. They inform relationships. If there is truth to Thomas Markle's claim, it colors every aspect of Meghan's life. Her relationship with Harry, her public persona, her advocacy work, and even the way the royal family interacts with her. And then there's the child. If he exists, and no one disputes that children placed in orphanages sometimes do survive and thrive, what does he feel? What does he know? And how does the knowledge of being left by someone who became a public figure, someone the world adores or critiques, shape a person? Questions for the audience. Ask yourself this. If you were in Meghan's shoes, would you make the same choices? Could you abandon a child to chase a dream? Or would you sacrifice everything for love and family? And more importantly, does the public have the right to know these intimate, painful truths? Or are some secrets meant to stay buried, no matter how high-profile the person becomes? The cliffhanger. Thomas Markle claims he finally discovered a photograph, hidden, grainy, taken at the orphanage, that allegedly proves the child exists. He says the photo shows a boy who looks exactly like Meghan, holding a stuffed animal, looking at the camera with a mixture of fear and curiosity. The identity of the photographer is unknown. The authenticity of the image has not been independently verified. But what comes next, Thomas says, will shock the world even more. Because according to him, the person who might be able to tell the full truth is Joseph Giuliano himself. And Joseph, after decades of silence, has allegedly agreed to speak. But what he says next could change everything we thought we knew about Meghan Markle, and no one saw it coming. Before the crown, before the cameras, before Suits, there was Joseph Giuliano. It's a name that, for decades, barely surfaced in public conversations. Yet according to sources who knew Meghan during her teenage years, Joseph wasn't just a fleeting high school crush. He was her first love, the first person she ever imagined building a future with. And in a story filled with secrecy and heartbreak, he's the one who allegedly knew the truth about the child long before the world did. The spark of young love. High school romances often carry a weight that adulthood forgets. But Meghan's alleged relationship with Joseph Giuliano was different. Those who attended Immaculate Heart High School in Los Angeles during the late 1990s described the two as inseparable. She'd light up when she saw him, one former classmate recalled, and he was always protective of her. Not in a creepy way, just fiercely loyal. They were typical teenagers in some ways, laughing in corridors, sneaking out for late-night drives. But in others, their connection ran deeper. Plans were whispered, futures discussed in the quiet corners of the library. They spoke of college, ambition, and dreams that stretched far beyond Los Angeles. But what happens when teenage love collides with life-altering circumstances? A relationship under pressure. According to rumors that have circulated among Meghan's old acquaintances, the relationship was intense, passionate, and emotionally charged. Joseph Giuliano is described as charismatic, ambitious, and fiercely protective, but also stubborn, a combination that could either make him a perfect partner or a source of conflict. By 1999, Meghan was 18, on the brink of adulthood. She was navigating auditions, small acting gigs, and the early pressures of a career she hoped would skyrocket. Joseph, meanwhile, was grounded, tied to family expectations, and reportedly eager to start a life with Meghan. Then came the pregnancy. The unplanned child. Sources allege that Meghan became pregnant at 19. The timing coincided with a critical period: auditions, professional networking, and the looming prospect of leaving for Toronto or Los Angeles for larger acting opportunities. Joseph reportedly wanted to embrace fatherhood, but Meghan allegedly felt trapped. The world was watching, ambition called, and she was terrified. One former friend told a blogger, "I don't think she wanted to hurt anyone, especially Joseph. But she panicked. She didn't know what to do. And back then, abortion and adoption were decisions she had to face alone." This moment, this alleged unplanned pregnancy, is a turning point. It's the axis on which the rest of the story spins. The fallout with Joseph. Allegedly, when Meghan confided in Joseph about the pregnancy, the conversation didn't go as one might expect. Sources suggest that Joseph wanted to support her, wanted to step up and claim responsibility. But Meghan, terrified of scandal and of derailing her ambitions, reportedly insisted that she had no choice but to leave the child in the care of an orphanage. Accounts differ on whether Joseph agreed reluctantly, begged her not to, or was simply shut out entirely. What is agreed upon, however, is that the relationship fractured irreparably. Joseph allegedly vanished from Meghan's life, leaving a void that no amount of red carpet success could fill. The man behind the name. Who exactly was Joseph Giuliano? Public records are sparse, and very few contemporary accounts exist, but sources describe him as ambitious, but not in Hollywood. He had plans for business or engineering. Loyal and protective, a stark contrast to Meghan's world of fast-moving opportunities. Young, impulsive, and emotionally vulnerable, the perfect storm for heartbreak when faced with the news of an unplanned child. Even now, decades later, Joseph's family reportedly refuses to comment publicly, yet private conversations suggest he carried the burden of the secret long after Meghan vanished from his life. Why Joseph matters? You might ask, why focus on Joseph at all? Isn't this about Meghan? Because Joseph is potentially the only living witness to a truth that could confirm or deny Thomas Markle's claims. If the child exists, Joseph is either the father, the protector, or both. And according to sources, he has remained largely silent. Until recently, the silence raises questions. Did he fear repercussions from Meghan's PR team? Was he coerced? Or did he simply decide that the world wasn't ready for the truth? Whatever the case, Joseph's perspective is essential. Because in this story, he isn't just a former boyfriend. He's a linchpin, a key who could unlock decades of secrecy. The emotional stakes. Let's not forget the human element. Behind the headlines, legal threats, and orphanage rumors, there's heartbreak. Joseph allegedly watched the love of his life walk away, not just from him, but from a child that might have been his. Imagine that pain. First love, first betrayal, first loss. And for Meghan, the stakes were equally monumental. She was forced to make a choice at 19 that most adults would struggle to make in a lifetime. One anonymous source told a journalist, she was terrified. Ambition, fear, and shame collided. She was trying to survive, and in that process, a child got caught in the crossfire. The tragedy isn't just the alleged abandonment, it's the context. Teenage decisions compounded by fame, family pressure, and societal expectations. Questions for the audience. Think about it. If you were in Meghan's shoes, would you make the same decision? Would you face the world knowing your child would grow up in an orphanage, unknown to you, while you chased your dreams? And what about Joseph? Would you forgive? Would you hold resentment for decades? These are questions without easy answers, and they force us to confront the human cost behind the celebrity persona. The cliffhanger. Thomas Markle claims that Joseph Giuliano has finally agreed to speak after decades of silence. He allegedly possesses letters, photos, and even text messages that could corroborate the story of the child's existence. But what Joseph revealed next, according to Thomas, is something even more shocking. Meghan allegedly tried to erase every trace of the child's existence, going as far as contacting the orphanage and asking for the files to be sealed. And the one document that might finally tell the truth? According to sources, it's in Joseph's possession, and it contains a date and a name that could change the world's perception of Meghan Markle forever. What came next would change everything, and no one saw it coming. What if the most pivotal moment in Meghan Markle's life wasn't a royal wedding or a Netflix deal, but a decision made in total secrecy at 19 years old? That's the theory Thomas Markle is pushing. Not out of malice, at least not from his point of view, but from a place he calls righteous heartbreak. He claims he was kept in the dark about a life-changing event, Meghan's pregnancy. A decision that, if his claims are true, shaped not only her private life, but her entire public persona. The timeline, when broken down, tells a story few have dared to imagine until now. Late 1999, a shift in Meghan's behavior. Meghan was a standout student in high school. Smart, articulate, driven. But in the final stretch of her teenage years, something changed. A former friend, speaking anonymously to a podcast in 2021, said, "She became withdrawn. Still friendly, still polished, but guarded. Like she had something heavy she wasn't telling anyone." Photos from that era, now heavily scrutinized online, show Meghan attending fewer school events, skipping out on senior trips, and gradually pulling away from the Joseph Giuliano circle. According to Thomas Markle, this was around the time Meghan allegedly discovered she was pregnant. But here's where things get even murkier. January 2000, the disappearance. By early 2000, Meghan, then 18 going on 19, was suddenly gone for several weeks. No formal explanation. No travel announcements. Her friends say she told them she was going up north to clear her head. Others say she took a personal retreat to focus on college plans. Thomas Markle remembers it differently. "She told me she was visiting relatives. But when I asked where, she hesitated. I knew something wasn't right." There's no official record of her whereabouts for at least 26 days between January and February 2000. And that's when the pregnancy theory tightens its grip. A trip across the border? A startling lead emerged in 2024 when a Mexican journalist published a story that was quickly buried, but archived by bloggers. It claimed that a young American woman matching Meghan's description had stayed briefly at a small women's shelter near Ensenada, Baja California. The facility, a Catholic-run organization known for housing unwed mothers and women fleeing abuse, had minimal records. But an anonymous staff member described a light-skinned biracial girl. Very pretty, polite, seemed scared, said she was 19. No name was given, but the timing matches. And even more chilling? The same shelter reportedly facilitated placements of infants into nearby orphanages. Mid-2000, the return and the silence. When Meghan returned to Los Angeles that spring, everything was quiet. She threw herself into work. Acting classes. Networking. A small part-time job at a local frozen yogurt shop. She smiled, posed for photos, and seemed perfectly put together. But according to Thomas Markle, she was colder. More distant. She had walls up. I thought it was just her growing up. Now I wonder if it was grief. Or guilt. The only clue. A journal entry dated May 2000. One that Thomas allegedly found years later in an old box stored in his garage. "I have to move forward. I have to keep my head high, even if the past follows me forever." A cryptic message. A cryptic year. The birth window. Late April to early May 2000. Assuming the pregnancy began in late summer or early fall of 1999, a due date in April or May 2000 would make sense. That timing would also align with Meghan's sudden absence from school, her lack of photographs or public appearances that spring, the known intake date of a baby boy at an orphanage near Ensenada around May 2, 2000. No parent listed. No identifying documentation, just a note reading, "Care for him. He deserves a life I cannot give." Handwriting experts, hired by independent researchers, claim the note resembles Meghan's early writing style. though no formal authentication has been released. But that one phrase, "he deserves a life I cannot give," echoes eerily with the journal entry recovered from Thomas's garage. Could this have been Meghan's farewell to the child? The Giuliano connection, was he there? Joseph Giuliano, by all accounts, was completely removed from these events. Friends say he spiraled during that time. One classmate claimed he stopped showing up to community college lectures. He stopped answering calls. And within weeks, he had moved out of Los Angeles to live with relatives in San Jose. Did he know? Did he try to intervene? We don't know. But a former coworker at a car dealership years later recalled this chilling quote. "She left. Said she had to do something. I waited. Then one day, she was just gone." What about Doria Ragland? Doria Ragland, Meghan's mother, has never spoken publicly about this alleged period in Meghan's life. But there's a notable detail. Around spring of 2000, Doria reportedly took an unexpected leave of absence from her job as a yoga instructor and social worker. Friends thought it odd, but she gave no reason. Could she have been the one who helped Meghan during those weeks? Could she have escorted her across the border? Helped make arrangements? Thomas Markle insists he had no idea. "She kept it from me." Doria never said a word. But if Doria knew and helped her daughter navigate the most difficult moment of her young life, then her silence, decades later, becomes deafening. Media blackout or something more? Here's where the timeline raises even more eyebrows. In late 2000, just months after allegedly giving birth and placing the child, Meghan landed a small acting gig in a cable TV drama. By 2002, she was a briefcase girl on Deal or No Deal. By 2006, she had moved to Toronto. It was as if she hit fast forward on her life, erasing all traces of 2000. And here's the most startling piece of evidence. A background check run on Meghan in 2004 reportedly came back clean. No history of medical treatment or birth-related entries tied to her name in California or federal databases. Some speculate this means the pregnancy never happened. Others believe it means something far more troubling, that someone, somewhere, helped scrub the records. Questions for the audience. Let's pause. If you were 19, terrified, alone, and ambitious, would you make the same choice? Would you carry the weight of that decision into adulthood? And more importantly, if you later built a life, a family, a legacy, would you ever risk revealing that hidden chapter? Or would you bury it forever? The cliffhanger. Thomas Markle claims he recently received a package at his doorstep. No return address. Inside was a USB drive. On it, a video clip, blurry, clearly from a handheld camera. It showed a crying baby in a white crib. A nurse holding up a small sign. May 2nd, 2000, new arrival. In the background, a woman, face turned away from the camera. Long dark hair, slender frame, wearing a green hoodie. And Thomas says he knows that hoodie. He says it belonged to Meghan. What came next in that video would shake him to his core, and what he claims to have seen next, no one was prepared for. What if the truth has been sitting in a dusty cabinet all along, forgotten, and signed, unclaimed? In every great scandal, there's a trail. It might be faint, it might be buried, but it's there, just waiting for someone to follow it. And in this story, that trail led to an unassuming beige building nestled on the outskirts of Ensenada, Mexico. A place where the cries of forgotten children echoed through iron gates, and where paperwork was often more symbolic than legal. It's here, Thomas Markle claims, that the truth about Meghan's secret child was nearly lost forever. The facility no one talks about. The orphanage wasn't glamorous. It wasn't even well-staffed. Run by an aging nun and 2 volunteers, Casa de Los Angeles was the kind of place people only found when they had nowhere else to go, or when they wanted to disappear without leaving a trace. Built in the late 1980s, the facility operated under limited oversight. Its connection to a nearby Catholic-run shelter made it ideal for unwed mothers seeking anonymity. According to Mexican investigative journalist Lucia Marin, this orphanage received over 50 infants between 1995 and 2005. Most were either abandoned at its gates or transferred discreetly by overwhelmed young mothers who didn't sign their names. Many children had no documentation, just cryptic notes or nothing at all. And in the spring of 2000, one of those children arrived. A baby boy. No name. No parent signature. Only a handwritten note tucked into a folded napkin now yellowed with age. The note. Maureen claims to have seen the note. She even photographed it, though publishing it would require formal permission. But the content? Please love him. He is all I had, but I have nothing left to give. Forgive me. That was it. No signature. No date. But the child's intake was registered as May 2nd, 2000. The orphanage's intake log, scribbled in faded blue ink, identified the infant as Juanito Doe. Weight, 6.3 pounds. Skin, light brown. Eyes, dark. Distinguishing mark, tiny freckle on left shoulder. He was wrapped in a cheap cotton blanket and had no other items with him. The missing file. Thomas Markle says he was tipped off about the orphanage by a retired American volunteer who contacted him after watching one of his early interviews. She said she had worked briefly at Casa de Los Angeles in the summer of 2000. What she remembered most? A baby who looked just like Meghan. Not Meghan the Duchess. Meghan the girl who used to hang around Immaculate Heart High School. She had the same almond eyes, the woman allegedly told Thomas. And a sadness that didn't make sense for a newborn. Her most explosive claim? That someone returned to the orphanage months later, someone who didn't speak, didn't sign anything, and refused to remove her sunglasses the entire time. She just stood there, the woman said, looked at the boy for a long time, and then she left. That visitor, she insists, was Meghan Markle. Could it be? Of course, skeptics say this is nothing but a ghost story. That these are the unreliable memories of a woman looking for attention. But Thomas Markle didn't dismiss her. He flew to Mexico himself in 2023. He visited the orphanage. And what he found was both devastating and oddly confirming. The records from May 2000 were partially intact. Several names, several baby entries. Most had complete forms, signed by mothers, with local hospital notations. But Juanito Doe? His file was the only one missing pages. A logbook note read, transferred, 2001. No record of where. Just a red ink question mark next to the line that normally lists adoptive family. What happened to Juanito? This is the central mystery, the beating heart of the entire story. If this baby was Meghan's, and that's still an if, then what happened to him? Was he adopted? Did he stay in the system? Was he smuggled into another country under a new name? There are rumors that he was moved to a private children's facility in Guadalajara. Others suggest an American couple adopted him through unofficial channels. But no one knows for sure. And when Lucia Marin tried to request government documentation through the Mexican Family Welfare Agency, DF, she received a terse response. No additional records available. File sealed at the request of a foreign national. A foreign national? Was it Meghan? Or someone acting on her behalf? Why seal the file? This raises another disturbing question. Who has the power to seal orphanage records in a foreign country? The answer: it's rare, but not impossible. With the right legal team, connections, or financial leverage, a file can be classified as confidential, especially if the adoptee is no longer in the system or the adoption involved sensitive international arrangements. Thomas Markle alleges Meghan did exactly that. He claims a lawyer close to the Duchess of Sussex paid a substantial fee to ensure no public trace of the child remained. But why? To protect a painful chapter? Or to erase it? Emotional toll. One can only imagine the toll this story has taken on Thomas Markle. In many interviews, he has been labeled as bitter, vindictive, a man trying to claw his way into relevance. But listen to him closely, and another tone emerges: desperation. I just want the truth, he reportedly said during a private phone call with a journalist. If there's a young man out there who's my grandson, he deserves to know. And what about Meghan? If true, this story suggests an unimaginable internal war, a woman torn between chasing her future and burying her past. What mother could live with that? What daughter could go on pretending none of it happened? Questions for the audience. Would you go back? Would you return to the place where you left a piece of yourself behind? If you had a child at 19 and gave him up, out of fear, ambition, or survival, would you ever want to see him again? Or would you make peace with the past and pray it never caught up? The cliffhanger. Just before Thomas left the orphanage, an elderly nun approached him. She had been there since the early 1990s, mostly retired, rarely speaking. She led him to a box of old photographs. And in one photo, taken in 2000, was a baby boy lying in a small crib. A woman stood beside him, her face turned away. But in her hand, she was holding a charm bracelet. The exact same bracelet Meghan wore in a red carpet photo in 2001. Thomas took a photo of the photo, and in the back, scribbled in Spanish, were 5 haunting words. Ella dijo que era su hijo. She said he was her son. But what Thomas found next, hidden inside the frame of that photo, no one expected. And it would change everything. What happens when a family bound by silence finally decides to speak? For over 2 decades, the Giuliano family lived in the shadow of a secret. Friends knew bits and pieces. Neighbors whispered. But inside the Giuliano home, the name Meghan Markle was almost never spoken. Until now. Because in a story long thought buried, the people who knew Joseph Giuliano best, his mother, his sister, and his cousin, have finally come forward. And what they say not only supports Thomas Markle's haunting claims, it adds new layers of betrayal, heartbreak, and cover-up. A phone call that changed everything. It started with a single message. In 2024, following Thomas Markle's appearance on a podcast discussing the alleged orphanage link, a retired social worker named Rosa Santiago reached out to a journalist in San Diego. She said, "I think I know the boy he's talking about. But more than that, I know who the father is. And the father's mother once told me everything. That woman, Maria Giuliano, Joseph's mother." According to Rosa, Maria confessed over lunch in 2002 that her son had once been engaged to a mixed-race girl from LA who left him suddenly after becoming pregnant. She was heartbroken, Rosa recalled. She said she'd begged the girl not to give the baby up. When asked who the girl was, Maria only said, "She's trying to be famous now. I won't say her name. But one day, you'll see her face on TV, and you'll know." That day, Rosa says, came years later, when she saw Meghan Markle walk beside Prince Harry. Maria Giuliano's private diary. Maria Giuliano passed away in 2021, but her handwritten diaries, kept meticulously since the 1980s, remained with her daughter, Christina Giuliano. And in one entry dated April 14, 2000, she wrote, "Joseph came home in tears. She's pregnant. He says she wants to leave the baby. He begged her to reconsider, but she's made up her mind. My heart is breaking for them both. They're just kids." Another entry, dated May 6, 2000. "He doesn't know where she went. Won't say anything. I think he's scared she already gave the baby away. He blames himself. But it's not his fault. It's never the boy's decision." The language is raw, maternal, and filled with pain. But the detail is clear. Joseph and Meghan were expecting a child. And Meghan, according to the family, had no intention of keeping it. Why the Giulianos stayed silent. Christina Giuliano, Joseph's sister, agreed to speak on camera for the first time in 2025. What she said shocked even the producers. She made him promise never to tell, Christina said. She said it would ruin her. That no one would ever cast her again. She said, "You'll destroy me, Joe. Please, just forget this ever happened." And like a fool, he agreed. Joseph reportedly went into a deep depression. He withdrew from family events. At one point, he dropped out of community college and moved in with his cousin in Fresno for a year to escape the emotional wreckage. He thought about tracking down the child, Christina continued. He even hired someone at one point. But every time he tried, someone would push back. We don't know who. But it was like the trail just vanished. The missing envelope. In 2008, long before Meghan became a global sensation, Maria Giuliano reportedly received a letter in the mail with no return address. Inside, a grainy photo of a young boy, age 8 or 9, sitting in what appeared to be a church hallway. On the back, scribbled in red pen, "Do you still think about him?" "I do." Maria reportedly broke down when she saw the photo. But what's chilling is what she did next. She burned it. No copies. No calls. No notes. When Christina asked her why, Maria allegedly said, "Because if anyone finds out, she'll destroy him." Joseph's silence, and his breaking point. To this day, Joseph Giuliano has not spoken publicly. But according to those closest to him, he came close, many times. One friend from his early 20s said Joseph kept a box in his closet labeled MM, full of old letters, photos, and a small baby sock wrapped in tissue paper. He'd take it out sometimes, the friend said. Stare at it. Then put it away. In 2019, after Meghan and Harry welcomed Archie, Joseph reportedly had an emotional breakdown. He told me, "She gets to be a mother now. On TV, in front of the world. But our child? He never got a chance. That pain, the silent kind, never left him. But the recent leaks, the resurfacing of Thomas Markle's claims, and the growing speculation online, they've pushed Joseph to the edge. Sources say he's now considering legal action, not for fame or money, but for recognition. He wants a DNA test, and he wants the truth on record. Questions for the audience. If someone you loved made you promise to hide a child, what would you do? Would you keep that secret to protect them? Or would you fight for the truth, even if it shattered your own heart? Is loyalty stronger than justice? Is silence braver than confession? The family's message to Meghan. At the end of the interview, Joe Giuliano had one final thing to say, directly to Meghan. We don't want to hurt you, but we want closure. You were 19. We all make mistakes. But don't pretend it didn't happen. Because you're not just denying it to the world, you're denying it to the child. She paused, swallowed hard. And if you're watching this, he has your eyes. The cliffhanger. Just days after the Giuliano family interview aired online, Thomas Markle says he received a call from a blocked number. The voice on the other end? A man. Quiet. Calm. American accent. He only said 4 words before hanging up. I think it's time. Thomas is convinced it was Joseph. And what Joseph allegedly sent him the next day, a 15-year-old birth certificate copy-marked, confidential, with 2 unlisted parent names, would finally rip the lid off everything. But before Thomas could go public, someone else got involved. And what that person did next. How do you make a person disappear in the age of digital footprints? In 2000, there were no viral Instagram timelines, no geotags, no live updates from brunch spots or yoga studios. But there were yearbooks, class attendance, employment forms. Even in the pre-social media era, people left traces, unless they didn't want to be found. And Meghan Markle, then just a bright, ambitious teenager on the verge of stepping into Hollywood, vanished. Not forever, not in a way that would raise red flags, but just long enough to make a baby disappear and reset her life. Where did she go? To this day, there's a 4-week period in Meghan Markle's early adult life that remains unaccounted for. Not undocumented, just empty. Between January and February 2000, multiple records go dark. No school attendance logged at Immaculate Heart High School. No confirmed residence in Los Angeles County. No banking transactions on the shared family account, according to Thomas. No phone calls made from her personal line, according to a 2001 prepaid carrier log obtained by private investigators. It's as if she hit pause on everything. And Thomas Markle? He says he didn't even notice until she came home with a new coldness. She was distant, like she'd built a wall overnight, he recalls. I figured she'd just had her heart broken. Now I know better. The alias theory. In early 2023, an ex-employee at a women's clinic in Tijuana came forward anonymously. She claimed that a girl matching Meghan's description had checked in under the name Rachel M. Ironically, Rachel Meghan Markle is her full birth name. The woman, known in court documents only as Alicia, said she was calm, polite, nervous, but composed. She spoke Spanish well enough. Said she was visiting family in Ensenada. No photos were taken. No official record tied her to Meghan Markle. But the clinic's intake form included a bizarre note. Client declined post-care counseling. Stated she would not be keeping the child. And the due date? Listed as April 30th, 2000. The hidden room. In 2024, an independent investigator named Jared Klein, originally hired by a gossip outlet to track down Meghan's college friends, made an unexpected discovery. Using property rental records from 1999 to 2001, Klein located a small apartment near Chula Vista, California, just a short drive from the border. The unit had been rented briefly, 5 weeks only, under a name resembling Meghan's cousin, though the signature was never verified. Inside, after securing access from the landlord, Klein discovered a locked room, small, spare, and stripped bare. But behind the wallpaper, taped to the wall in plastic, a bus pass from Tijuana, a photo of a young woman in a hoodie holding what appeared to be a baby, facing away from the camera, and a crumpled piece of paper with a phone number and the words, "Call once, no voicemails." The number no longer works. But Klein believes the room was a temporary safe house, a place to stay hidden, a place to make hard decisions. Meghan reappears, transformed. When Meghan returned to public life in Los Angeles by spring of 2000, she re-emerged with fierce energy. She enrolled in acting classes, started networking aggressively. She even landed a background role in a commercial that aired regionally. But according to her friends, she was different. She seemed harder, more ambitious, less willing to talk about her past, said one classmate. When asked about her relationship with Joe Giuliano, she brushed it off, said they were just kids, nothing serious. But Joseph wasn't the only one she ghosted. According to Thomas, Meghan became colder with him and with Doria. She barely looked me in the eye for weeks, he said. I thought she hated me. Now I think she hated herself. A deal with Doria? Thomas Markle also believes Meghan didn't make the decision alone. He's convinced that Doria, Meghan's mother, was involved. She was too calm when Meghan came back, he said. They had a secret. I wasn't part of it. While Doria has never spoken publicly about this timeline, employment records show she took a leave of absence from her job between January 10th and February 18th, 2000. The reason? Family emergency. But no one, then or now, has clarified what that emergency was. Could it have been a cross-border trip? A delivery? A mother helping her daughter disappear long enough to make a child vanish? It's a question Thomas Markle has asked again and again, and never received an answer. Vanishing act or strategic erasure? Critics argue that all of this is circumstantial. That teens disappear for mental health breaks. That acting hopefuls often go off-grid before auditions or transitions. But there's a difference between taking a break and disappearing with precision. What's chilling is how complete the vanishing act was. No friends visited. No emails were sent. No photos were taken. It's as though Meghan deliberately constructed a memory hole, a space that could never be traced back. And if so, who taught her how? Who gave her the tools? Or was it pure instinct? Protect the dream at all costs? Questions for the audience. What would you give up for your future? Would you risk your family? Your love? Your child? And if you erased your past to build your present, would you ever let yourself look back? Or would the silence become part of the story you tell the world? In 2025, a new source emerged. A Mexican taxi driver named Ernesto claimed he picked up a young American woman and a newborn at a women's shelter near Rosarito in early May 2000. He said she gave him $20 and a piece of paper with an address near Tijuana. When he arrived, a man was waiting. And as the woman stepped out of the car, Ernesto says she turned to the baby and whispered, "I'll find you again someday. I promise." That man took the child inside, and the woman walked away. Ernesto didn't know who she was until 20 years later when he saw Meghan Markle on TV. "I swear," he said, "it was her." But what makes his story even more haunting? He kept the piece of paper she gave him with the address. And the address? It no longer exists. The building was torn down in 2004. But the name of the facility? Hogar de Angeles. The same orphanage Thomas Markle visited. And what he found in that torn-down building's rubble, sealed in a rusted metal filing drawer, would silence even his harshest critics. Because inside was a birth record, and under her mother's first name, someone had scribbled a single word and then tried to erase it. But the indentations remained, just enough to read. Meghan, what if the one man everyone dismissed was the only person telling the truth the entire time? Thomas Markle has been called many things. A publicity hound, a bitter father, a man obsessed with reclaiming the spotlight his daughter refused to share. But what if behind the theatrics, the interviews, the open letters, there was something else? A father's grief, a man silenced not by media contracts or PR spin, but by heartbreak. Because according to Thomas, his biggest regret isn't missing Meghan's royal wedding. It's missing the birth of his first grandchild. And the confession he's kept buried for 25 years might explain why. A father's instinct. It was the summer of 2000 when Thomas says he began to suspect something had gone terribly wrong. Meghan had returned from her sudden, unannounced trip, but everything about her was different. She was quieter, Thomas recalls. Not sad, just closed. Like someone who'd locked part of herself away and thrown away the key. At first, he chalked it up to normal growing pains. She was transitioning from high school to college, from childhood to adulthood. But then he noticed the physical changes. She had always been slim, but this was different. She looked like someone who had just been through something traumatic. She moved differently, spoke in shorter sentences, and she didn't want to be touched. It wasn't until he accidentally walked into her room one afternoon that he saw what he now believes was the final clue. A small photograph, folded in half, tucked under her pillow, of a baby. The photo he was never meant to see. She snatched it from me before I could say anything, Thomas says. Her hands were shaking. She said it was a photo of a friend's child. But her eyes gave her away. He didn't press it. He was afraid. Afraid of damaging what little trust they still shared. But he couldn't forget the image, a newborn swaddled in a hospital blanket, eyes barely open, with hair as dark as ink and skin the same shade as Meghan's. It haunted him, and when she left home weeks later to begin her acting classes full-time in LA, he began searching for answers on his own. The letter. What he found came unexpectedly. A crumpled, tear-stained letter tucked into the side panel of her bedroom desk. Likely dropped during her packing frenzy. It read, "I'm sorry. I know you'll never forgive me, but I couldn't give up everything, not for something I never asked for. He deserved better. I couldn't be both things. Not then. No name, no address, no explanation. But Thomas knew. I didn't need a DNA test," he says. "I could feel it. That letter was for me. She just never sent it." Why he stayed silent. Many have asked, if Thomas knew, why didn't he come forward earlier? Why wait until Meghan was famous, royalty even, before telling the world? The answer, he says, is both simple and tragic. I thought it was over. I thought she'd made her choice, and that the baby was gone. I didn't want to destroy what little was left of our relationship. So I stayed quiet. But he never forgot. Every birthday, he wondered. Every Christmas, he bought an extra gift and stored it in the attic. I kept telling myself, if he ever finds me, I'll be ready. And then the world changed. The royal wedding, and the breaking point. When Meghan married Prince Harry in 2018, Thomas says he felt like watching a stranger in his daughter's skin. She looked beautiful, radiant. But I kept thinking, how can she celebrate motherhood now, when she's never acknowledged the first child she brought into this world? The world was celebrating her. He was unraveling. He says he drank more, lost weight, spent nights rereading the old letter until the paper was nearly torn in half. And when Archie was born, the silence became unbearable. That baby boy, the whole world cooed over him. And all I could think about was the other boy, the one no one knew, the one she left behind. The confession to a stranger. In 2020, Thomas finally told someone. Not a journalist, not a lawyer, a stranger in a bar. I was in Rosarito, having a drink. A guy next to me said he used to drive for an adoption agency. Said he once picked up a girl who looked like Meghan, back in 2000. I lost it. I told him everything. The man gave him a number, someone who allegedly worked at the orphanage in Ensenada. That call changed everything. Because the woman on the other end said she remembered Meghan, remembered her crying, shivering, holding a tiny baby and whispering, "You won't remember me, but maybe one day he will." The necklace. In early 2022, Thomas received a small, unmarked package in the mail. Inside was a silver necklace, a tiny, heart-shaped pendant, engraved with the initials. MJ. Thomas believes it was sent by someone trying to connect the dots. Perhaps Joseph. Perhaps the boy himself. He still wears it. I don't know what it means exactly, but it feels like a thread, like someone out there knows. And they want me to keep going. Why he's speaking now? So why now? Why go public after years of hints and half-truths? Because Thomas says he's running out of time. I'm not a young man anymore. And if this boy is out there, if he's alive, he deserves answers. Not from the tabloids. From us. From his family. He's also ready for the consequences. If Meghan hates me forever, fine. She already does. But if there's a chance this boy is wondering who he is, I won't go to my grave holding the truth hostage. What Thomas wants. He's not looking for money, or interviews, or Netflix deals. He says he only wants one thing, a DNA test. Not from Meghan, from the boy, if he can be found. Because Thomas claims he's finally located someone who fits. An anonymous young man who recently reached out via encrypted email. Someone who claimed to have been raised in a series of group homes across Mexico, then brought to the U.S. in his teens. A man who allegedly remembers a woman with curly hair, soft skin, and eyes that smiled, even when her mouth didn't. And that man, he sent Thomas a photo. And in that photo was the same silver heart necklace. Questions for the audience. If you were Thomas, would you stay quiet? Would you risk being hated by your daughter to do what you think is right? And if you were Meghan, how would you feel, knowing the past refused to stay buried? Thomas says he's ready to release everything. The photo, the letter, the necklace, the video clip from the orphanage. But before he could, he received a letter. Hand-delivered. No return address. One sentence, handwritten in black ink. If you speak, the world will burn, for you and for him. He doesn't know who sent it. But he's certain of one thing. The story is far from over. Because someone else just stepped into the shadows. And the next chapter? It's going to expose the diary Meghan thought was gone forever. What if the one thing Meghan Markle never meant to leave behind was the one thing that could reveal everything? Diaries are personal. They're supposed to be sacred, private, untouchable. But what happens when those pages are the only thing standing between rumor and revelation? In a locked box in a San Fernando Valley storage unit, one rented years ago under the name of Meghan's grandmother, there sat a forgotten cache of personal items, childhood drawings, early photos, and a set of spiral-bound notebooks. Notebooks filled with Meghan Markle's handwriting, and on one stained, torn page, buried between doodles and song lyrics, was a line that would stop a journalist in her tracks. A line that read, "He cried when I let go. He didn't scream. Just looked at me, like he already knew." The storage unit that shouldn't exist. The unit was discovered in late 2024 during a bankruptcy auction tied to an old family friend of the Raglins. A woman named Evelyn Cortez, who had helped Doria Raglan during a rough financial period in the late 90s, defaulted on the unit's rent. When the new owner opened the dusty unit, they found boxes labeled MR and D stuff. Assuming it might contain memorabilia or something resellable, they went through it and immediately knew they had stumbled upon something explosive. Within hours, the tabloids were swarming. But before anything could be sold to the highest bidder, a freelance investigative journalist named Erin Voss got there first. And what she found stunned her. The first notebook. Most of it was innocent. Pages of high school poetry. A journal entry about landing her first audition. Notes about fixing her teeth, and dreams of being bigger than Tyra Banks. But then, halfway through the second notebook, everything shifted. The handwriting became Messier. The tone, darker. And then came the passage dated February 2nd, 2000. "It's done." I handed him over. I told them not to use my name. Just him. Just a whisper. He was so small. So warm. I feel cold now. I can't stop shaking. I think I broke myself. Erin Voss froze. She reread the passage 5 times. The context was unmistakable. This wasn't about a breakup. This was about a baby. A mother's voice, in private. The diary didn't read like a tabloid expose. It read like pain. Real, raw, undiluted grief. Poured onto paper by a terrified young woman who had made a decision she couldn't take back. Other entries followed. I had to promise I'd never look for him. The woman said I was brave. She didn't see the panic in my chest. What if he hates me? I hope he forgets me. I hope he doesn't. It was contradiction, regret, conflict, and in one scribbled margin note, "No one must ever know."